He's a lecturer at the University of Waterloo and a Middle East analyst. Thanks so much for your time, Shahram. Do you agree with the American assessment that this growing partnership, this military alliance between Iran and Russia, will be destabilizing for the world?
Absolutely, and it has been destabilizing for the Middle East region, at least since the beginning of the Arab Spring. We shall not forget that the situation that happened in Syria with respect to a civil war and the lackluster attitude of President Obama, and in its aftermath, the rise of Daesh, the Islamic State, actually consolidated the already existing military relationship between Russia and Iran that dates back to the 1990s. Thus, it was no surprise that as the Russian ammunition is running out in a protracted conflict in Ukraine that Russians did not expect, now Iran, in the aftermath of almost 25 years of consolidated relationship in terms of military development with Russia, would become a major provider and supplier of this military assistance in terms of ammunition and the technology that it has already imported from Russia during the past 20 years.
Many people have been saying that the Russian weaponry that's being used in Ukraine is antiquated and, I mean, apart from all of the assessments of the morale of the Russian troops. But in terms of sanctions being placed on Russia, Iran being sanctioned for so many years, people will be wondering how these states can afford to spend so much money on weaponry. Does it come at the expense of their citizens?
It certainly is coming at the expense of their citizens. One should not forget that the Islamic Republic of Iran has been on and off over the past 43 years during its existence under sanctions. And it is not surprising that Russia has been trying to get tips from the Islamic Republic of Iran as to how to circumvent these sanctions. And it must be noted that the kleptocratic network that the Islamic Republic of Iran has developed over the past 43 years throughout the world between all sorts of countries that have popped up as either clients or patrons of this regime, from Venezuela and Cuba all the way to Russia itself, have been parts and parcels of this rather sophisticated sanctions circumventing network. But because both regimes rely heavily on international adventures in order to consolidate their support base, obviously the biggest losers and the people who suffer the most at the hands of the misgovernance and corruption and power mongering of both countries are the citizens of these countries in the first place.
Shahram, I mean, everything you're saying is quite clearly correct. And what I'm about to present to you doesn't refute those analyses that you've given us. But I'm just wondering about the question of hypocrisy. The UK's Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, calls them sordid deals between Iran and Russia. The Americans are saying that people in Ukraine are dying because of Iran's actions. But how many weapons have the Americans sold and the British sold that are killing people in different wars?
At the risk of being accused of whataboutisms, of course, this is something that we have to take into consideration, but we also have to remember that Britain and the United States, in certain situations, such as Bosnia or the Kosovo War and or the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait, were able to bring about some sort of an international consensus, either through the NATO and the European Union, and or in collaboration and in tandem with the United Nations Security Council. Because of the nature of the Russian adventure in Ukraine, what is happening is that Russia has not been able to muster the kind of international consensus and support that Britain and the United States were able to bring about, even for a very unpopular war like the invasion of Iraq. So as you can see, the situation with respect to Russia and the Islamic regime of Iran is that they are used to being international pariahs, while the United States and the United Kingdom, because of the expanse of the relationship at the World Trade Center and etc., and China and East Asia, they've always been more sophisticated in the manner by which they have handled these matters of diplomatic and military, and we can say rather hypocritically.
Shahram Kholdi, really appreciate it. Thank you so much indeed.